Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Kendra James Anderson of the financefem.com. Kendra, it's awesome to have you on the show.
I'm so glad to be here, Gresh. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I wanted to read a little bit more about Kendra so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Kendra is a virtual CFO and business manager that helps women entrepreneurs in all aspects of their business, finances, and accounting. After graduating from Clemson University with a bachelor's degree in corporate finance and 10 plus years climbing the corporate ladder, Kendra ditched her six-figure corporate salary and built her brand and business to serve as a full-time money manager for boss women. With a growing and active tribe of 20,000 plus on social media, many entrepreneurs follow to learn what it really takes to go from overwhelmed entrepreneur to profitable business owner. Additionally, Kendra offers private coaching to other women in the finance and accounting industry to help them build their business and brand. And she is also the host of the Level Up podcast. Kendra, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Oh, I am so ready. Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So to jump right in, I wanted to, I guess, rewind the clock a little bit. Hear your beginning CEO story. We'll let you get started with all the awesome things you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of which you kind of mentioned there in the bio, but like, I started off, I went to Clemson University. I've always been interested in business and like economics, always. So even when I was at Clemson, I knew from the start that I wanted to be in finance in some capacity. And so once I graduated there, I went straight into the corporate world, moved to New York City, which is like, of course, you get a finance degree, you move to New York, right?
Right.
Climbed that corporate ladder for about 10 years. And I was very, very blessed in that the 10 years that I was in corporate, I was directly supporting CFOs at companies like GE and these other major companies. So I was able to directly see what a CFO does. So not like just how the finance department works, but what a CFO does and how crucial they are to a business. And so that 10 years in corporate was literally like 10 years of paid training for what I'm doing now. It was perfect. Then I branched out on my own about 6 years ago. I retired from corporate in December of 2016, and I've been full-time ever since. And started, I grew my business. Right now we're like a multi-six-figure firm. I have my eyes on seven figures. And, my goal is really to just help women entrepreneurs of all types, whether they are service-based like a lawyer or whether they are product-based and out there selling, different products. That's really what my goal and my passion is.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love how you kind of talked about you getting that opportunity to have that 10 years of internship, so to speak, where you got the opportunity to really work and be able to help out so many people. Because I think whenever you start a business, people have different goals or aspirations, but knowing that firsthand from those larger companies exactly what that looks like and what success looks like, it definitely probably helps to direct those people that are maybe just getting started or taking the steps, trying to take that next level, exactly how they're going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And within finance and probably all industries, but this is really the only industry I'm familiar with, but there's so many levels and steps, right? So you can, there's a financial analyst, there's a finance manager, there's financial directors, but being able to directly support CFOs is really when I was able to see, like, it's not just the data, it's the analyzing of the data. It's how do we use that data and think about metrics and KPIs to improve business models. So tying that in also with like economics, it was fascinating to be able to sit back and get that experience. And literally I'm directly using that now in my firm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess as the saying goes, you don't know your business till you know your numbers, and being aware of all those different aspects and what they do, not just having them, but as you said, being able to kind of read that book, so to speak, from your financial aspect and understand what to do or not to do based off of that is entirely huge. So I know I touched on it a little bit and you did as well. Could you take us through a lot of the different things that you have and ways that you are serving the clients that you have as well too?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the finance firm, there's really two legs to the business. So we have consulting that's done to women entrepreneurs of all different types. And then, like you mentioned, I also do coaching to other accounting and finance, tax professionals. And in the coaching, that's where I just help other like fellow industry professionals build their six or multi-six-figure firm by teaching them my signature six-figure firms framework. And that's done through like a 6-month group coaching program. But my main bread and butter, my main love within my business is the consulting side. And that's where we offer the full service accounting, virtual CFO services. I have a team of accountants that are maintaining their financial records, and then I serve as a CFO. So that's where I'm coming in. I'm helping with everything from business strategy and growth to investor relations. And then we also handle all things related to your taxes because we have on staff CPAs and EAs as well. So it's really a full service accounting, finance, and tax firm.
Nice. I definitely appreciate that kind of different ways in which you can, help out so many clients because, and I don't know if you find this yourself, that it's maybe sometimes difficult to understand when is the right time to have a CFO
Yeah.
or I'm sure it's something that you always should know about, but I'm sure you probably have that same kind of question that comes up with clients.
Yeah, all the time. And that's a really, really good question. And the way I kind of like to break it apart is because we do have an executive accounting service and then we have our full CFO service. Everyone doesn't need to
Mm,
have a full CFO service from the jump, right?
right.
So everyone should at least be aware of their accounting records. And so that's where that executive accounting service comes in, where maybe you don't need to focus on strategy and investor relations and 10xing your company so that you can sell in 5 years. Maybe that's not your focus right now. Maybe your focus is just getting to that first six figures or getting
Mm,
from six figures to multi six figures. And so I always like to say there's stabilization and there's scaling. Like everyone likes to think about scaling, like, oh, I want to grow. Sometimes it's just I need to stabilize. Like I need to understand why I'm making so much money, but I don't feel it. It's not in my bank account. What's going on? That's when you're in that stabilization phase. And that's when you really need to understand your accounting, forget the strategy and all of that. That's too far ahead right now. We need to slow it down and get an understanding of your numbers. So that accounting service is really for stabilization and that CFO service is really for strategy work. And so if you're not already really comfortable and clear on what your average income is, your expenses, what your balance sheet looks like, then first go into that accounting side.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And like I even said, it tells a story. Your numbers often tell a story. And I think you're absolutely right where, if you don't know, where your numbers are, where the expenses are going, things like that, you haven't really looked at that. It's really hard to scale and actually scale successfully, especially too, if you don't
Yes.
understand and get grasp and handle on that foundation.
Absolutely. There's definitely a thing as scaling too fast.
Mm,
And, and a lot of times the scaling too fast happens because there's not preparation or there's not an understanding of the numbers. So you can actually completely understand your numbers and be great and be a product-based business. And Oprah can say you have a great product and all of a sudden
mhm.
you're scaling too fast. So that can happen too, right? Where you do know your numbers, but you're just overwhelmed by the demand. But a lot of times what happens is is not where Oprah backs our product, but where we just don't know our numbers and we're trying to add another product line and then another product line. And it's just overwhelming. The cash flow takes us under. And so yeah, understanding your numbers is key before we focus on the strategy, stabilization over strategy.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I definitely appreciate you for sharing that. And are these, I know I touched on, your podcast. Are these some of the things that you cover on your podcast and show?
Yeah. So the podcast is all things business finance. Like I talk
Nice.
about for product-based businesses to service-based businesses, everything regarding your accounting, your finances, and also operations, because operations is another component that we do here at the finance firm if we're also tackling your accounting and finances because it all ties together, right? Your
Mhm.
team, your payroll, your processes, understanding your product, all of that ties in together when it comes to your numbers and building up your business. So yeah, on the podcast, we definitely go through all of that in detail.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. It could be for
Yes.
yourself personally or your business, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
I would say for the firm, it's the fact that we have a very high touch and high quality service. So a lot of accounting and finance firms out there, and I know this because I coach a lot of them, they come to me for coaching.
Mhm.
A lot of the accounting and finance firms out there focus too much on the quantity of clients that they have and not the quality. And they're overloaded with work. They're complaining about working 60-hour weeks because they have too many clients, and they're not able to be attentive or pay attention to the details, which when you're managing money is crucial, right? To understand the details. So we have a very high client retention rate because we offer a quality service and because we've put specific systems in place where our clients can contact us anytime for questions, which is key. Because if you have a big like business decision coming up, or you have an investor standing in front of you ready to offer you a deal and you have to analyze your numbers now, then you need that professional available to help you run those numbers now, not scheduling a meeting 5 weeks from now. So that's definitely our secret sauce, is the fact that we have this really high touch and high quality service, and which means we have a lower amount of client base, but we can focus and give more love to them.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. But and I love too, as you were saying that, I was thinking automatically what we were talking about with the finances before, taking a step to scale, you make sure that things are in place. And I think that when you are, providing really quality services, you make sure that you have, your finances in order, as we were talking about before. But obviously
Mhm.
you're able to provide really quality services, provides you that opportunity to really, make an impact with these businesses, these organizations, these people, and then start to see more and more impact overall.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the top things that I coach to other accounting and finance professionals is go deeper with your clients.
Mhm.
Like when you understand, you're already on a very intimate basis with them. You understand their numbers. You understand more than what sometimes their spouses know about their business.
Mhm.
So because you're already there, you're already deep, go deeper and help them, help them more than don't just throw a P&L and balance sheet at them at the end of the month. Like go deeper with them and helping them grow their business. And if you're able to do that, you increase your retention, you increase your ability to then have the time to actually put systems in place so that you can then scale your firm. So it's all about being strategic. And a lot of times I think it's hard because you slow down to speed up, but you got to slow
Mhm.
down to speed up in business. Like I think that's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Slow down to speed up. And I think so many times we forget that it's a marathon as well too. And if
Yes,
you're
it
not
is.
doing it today, it doesn't mean you can't do it, later on down the line. But understand, a lot of times we want to be in business for the long haul. So truly
Absolutely.
appreciate that secret sauce. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
So to me, in general, in entrepreneurship, but even outside in entrepreneurship, success to me lies in how you manage your time. So,
Mhm.
in whatever way that works for you, whether that is using like a physical planner, a digital planner, a notebook, a whiteboard, sticky notes, whatever it is, but you have to figure out what works for you, and then you have to figure out how to optimize your time management skills. Like, period. For me, it's a combination of a paper planner, my Google Calendar, and my project management tool. Like I have to have those three things in sync, but we're all different. So whatever works for you, but time management to me is key in being able to really be successful, again, in and outside of business, just period.
Yeah, absolutely in life. And I think a lot of times, I think what is the saying, like whatever I guess whenever you measure something, you can start to make changes to something to it. But a lot of times we don't even know how, we go to the end of the week. Sometimes we don't realize what happened or, especially with the entrepreneurs and business owners, there's so many fires and things to put out. If
Yeah.
you aren't paying attention to those things, tracking things, having those systems in place that work best for us, it's hard to kind of make changes and let alone know what's actually happening in our business a lot of times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like that whole concept of before the week starts or the month or however you want to plan out your time, you kind of think in advance about what you're wanting to do, but then at the end of it, you also want to review, like, do I need to adjust
Sure.
things? And sometimes we don't check in enough with ourselves. We're just kind of in this process of like trying to get things
Go,
done,
go,
but you
go.
want to do that and do that often to make sure that maybe the process that you're using to manage your time isn't what's best for you. There's so many different ways, right? So
Right.
you kind of have to first figure out what works best for you and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, check in with yourself and make sure and measure, see how things are going and what success looks like and how you are in alignment with that,
Yep.
I should say. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So it could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell yourself if you were to hop into a time machine.
Yeah, I love this. So for me, it's going to be one single word and it's going to be pivot. And
Mhm.
pivot is something I talk about all the time. And it's like one of my favorite words. And particularly within entrepreneurship, and why I think this is a CEO nugget is because you're going to come across things in business that are going to make you want to be like, WTF? Like, am I supposed to stop this whole business? Is this not the right thing for me? And it's not that it is that you need to shut things down. Sometimes it is, whatever. But majority of the time, it's just that you need to pivot. So pivoting means you have to be a little creative. Pivoting means you have to kind of think outside of the box. But that's what a successful entrepreneur does. So I just love to leave that little word in people's minds a lot of times that, whenever things feel hard or feel like they're not going as planned, don't abandon, just pivot.
Yeah, that's a huge nugget. And it's so funny because I think I was so surprised sometimes when you go back through successful people, successful companies, you think that it's completely a straight line. You don't realize that there were
Right.
adjustments and changes, pivots that people made in their business, their organizations, in their lives to get to exactly where they are and how
Yeah.
successful they are.
And sometimes the pivot is better than your initial plan.
Often it
You
is.
know, it's like you thought it was supposed to be, A, B, C, D, E, all the way to Z. And then you got to
Mm,
G and got completely hijacked and had to change everything up. And a lot of times that ends up being better. And it's because you're listening to the market, or you're listening to the trends, or you're listening to, macro or microeconomics. Like,
mhm.
you're taking in input, because a lot of times from the beginning, when you're planning out your A to Z, you don't know everything, right? You start to
Yeah.
hear and feel those things as you're going. And so then you're able to incorporate those things in. And yeah, it might cause you to go off the original path, but that's better than what you had
Mhm.
originally planned, because what you originally planned was a vacuum. It's just something you just
Yeah.
thought was going to work perfectly. So pivot. And a lot of times that pivot will take you farther than the original plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're notorious for being entrepreneurs. We see those opportunities. We sometimes fall in love with our opportunities. But
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of these pivots, and when you do it well, at least you are making it based off that data, that information, the actual market feedback. So you're able to say, okay, because of this, we're going to make this adjustment, and that allows
Yes.
you that opportunity to be like even more likely, or if that's a word, to be
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah. And Gresham, you made a very key point there, in
Mhm.
that pivoting doesn't mean that every time, something happens, you completely abandon ship. It means that you pause and take the time to measure, like you said,
Mhm.
you think about it. Like, do I want to do this? You look at the data. A lot of times that's the thing too. So you're absolutely correct there with that point, in that, if you come across a block, you want to measure what your other options are, look at the data and see what works, and then pivot. Don't just pivot. If you're pivoting daily,
Just
you're
say
pivoting too much. Right?
pivot.
It's not to say like be, all over the place. So that's a really good point on that. It's like pivot, but pivot cautiously by like looking at your options, weighing your options.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and I'm glad you carry that home as well. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO, and we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Kendra, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Being a CFO or being a CEO to me
Mhm.
is being a decisive leader.
Yeah.
So, you can't be a CEO or a chief executive officer and not be a leader. So leadership is a key trait to that, for me. And then also the decisiveness piece, that matters a lot, because in entrepreneurship, you have to make a lot of decisions, and a lot of times you have to make them relatively quickly. So you have to be confident in that. An indecisive leader really isn't much of a leader. So being a CEO to me is definitely having those two traits: being decisive and being a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's huge, especially, with the things that, happen, in the world or in life. You never know, exactly what is the right decision to make. But first of all, by being a leader and having that opportunity to kind of lead people or lead yourself, even to that matter, to where you want to be, that's a huge thing. But we have to make decisions, and no better person than CEO, quote unquote, to really make those decisions, and to
Yeah,
make them, and not just have no decision be made overall.
absolutely. To progress in business and in life and anything, it's a series of decisions, right? And
Mhm.
so the longer you take to make those decisions, the longer it's going to take you to get to where you're trying to go. And of course, again, to your point, measure data, look at the
Mhm.
data, analyze it, think about it. Don't just kind of, haphazardly go into something, but make a decision. Like, that's just one of my pet peeves in life, period. Just indecisive people. I'm like, oh my gosh, just
Make a
decide.
decision.
Like, we'll figure it out later. Just make a
Yeah,
decision.
exactly.
So yeah, it's just really important.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So you don't have to worry about where you're going to dinner or anything like that, because you know exactly
Yes.
to make a decision, just and
Just
just
make a
go from
decision.
there. So, Kendra, truly appreciate that perspective and your time, of course. So what I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get a hold of you, subscribe to the podcast, find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Yeah, well, first, I just want to thank you again for having me on. I love this format that you have of like kind of quick and dirty, getting the information, getting, sharing the knowledge. And one thing that I did just think of is like, for your listeners, for every piece of like content and data, that you take in from like a guru or like a business master or whatever, always pause to check in with yourself, because we all do things differently, and we all need things in our own unique way. So don't ever think that like someone else's blueprint is going to be your blueprint. And the quicker that you realize that and start checking in with yourself and doing that often, the quicker you'll reach where you're trying to go. And I just point that out because in this world of like so many entrepreneurs and gurus and all this kind of stuff, we can in an attempt to make a decision, we can listen to everyone's opinions and try to then create what we're doing. But a lot of times it's already there. Like, you really got to just kind of sit down and kind of just think about what's working for you. So that's really the only additional thing I would add, is just kind of make sure that when you're taking in any content or anything, that you're also checking in with yourself and seeing what fits right for you. Because at the end of the day, you have to execute whatever you're coming up with. Not that guru that said, wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and stretch for an hour and a half. Like, if you can't do that, don't, find what works for you. So that's the only thing I would add to that. Now, as far as how to get in contact, so the best way is our website, so thefinancefem.com. I'm also very active on Instagram, absolutely love Instagram, and my handle there is at thefinancefem. And so Femme is FEMME. And those are really the two best ways to get in contact with me. Or you can also check out the podcast, which is available on all podcast platforms. And it's called the Level Up Podcast. So you can just search for Level Up Kendra, and that's probably the easiest way to get to it.
Awesome. We will have those links and information in the show notes as well too, so that everybody can follow up with you. But truly appreciate that reminder as well, because I think so many times there's a fire hose of information, and you can really be, completely thrown off by following everybody's key to success. So the most important thing is that when we're looking outside for answers, a lot of times the answer is within us. So we also have to check in with ourselves, as you said too. So I appreciate that. Kendra, appreciate your time again, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you. You as well.